record this. We'll wait until other people join here. Not sure who all will make it.
Stuart, I sent you the Excel spreadsheet that I'd used during the presentation over a year ago. Did you get that?
Yes, I got that.
And just because I was doing it for myself, and there are no error checks in that. So if you put in an A when it should be a number, you're going to get errors and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that spreadsheet, it's basically like helping farmers to calculate how many heads, like balancing their stock, right? So if they have different types of animals or they want to implement some correction factors.
Absolutely, yeah. On all the trips I was over there in Kazakhstan, we never got on a ranch that I actually worked on or talked to anybody that didn't have multiple species. Now, I'm sure there are some, but then you could just, not fill in the other columns and it should work. But yeah, it allows you to do a forage balance basically of how many heads you have and how much land do you need, or how much land do you have and how many head and different types of species, would you need. And it also estimates then your winter feed requirements. So I didn't put in all the questions that you could if you were going to, put it out there, like, do you buy your winter hay? Well, then you don't have to answer those questions in the spreadsheet because it's an outside source of food. It tells you how much you need, but not subtracting it from what's available then for livestock to eat.
I wanted to ask, how is it? How are these decisions initially made, like on a new farm in the States? Do they use remote sensing to try to estimate the stocking rate, or is it all done, experimentally by, your weight per year or whatever?
If I don't think NRCS is using remote sensing right now and going backwards to say 10, 15 years and trying to get the forage production. I mean, definitely you could do that with today's technology, kind of like what Chi and I did with Golnez Help and others on our part of the project. The traditional way of doing it here in the States is, if you're going backwards in the science literature, it was called range sites. Now that's been modified and changed, and it's called an ecological site. And so you would go out to the property with a paper map, basically, and identify the area of concern that you are going to graze. And then you would ocularly estimate which ecological site it is and which one of the states is it. And then from that, they would go to a lookup table and try and estimate on average what the forage production is. And then if you're going to graze, let's say that spring, start, were you coming out of a bad drought, coming out of an excessively good year? So you got some, and then what happened last year? Had it been grazed? What's kind of your standing crop? So you get some sense of it. And then they would basically take about 50% of the estimated production and start with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then make adjustments for if you've got to walk an awful long way for water, or if it's very steep, reduce that. So the old rule of thumb was take half, leave half, to the best of your ability as a starting point, and then watch it and see if you're overgrazing it or if you're leaving more residue than you need.
And those lookup tables, how were those put together? The hard question.
Uh, sorry, I've got, I hope it's a head cold and not COVID. I'm not sure what I've got. I haven't taken a test yet. It was done originally with a form called a range site 417 form. So it was done clipping. They went out there, clipped them, developed those lookup tables in.
So the clippings then for each type of plant, there's some relationship between what you get on the clippings and the grazed production.
Well, if you were doing it perfectly, what you'd end up doing is setting up some exclosures. And from a research perspective, right. And then you'd clip inside and outside. And then you'd have, the assumption is that your rabbits, your small herbivores are not going to eat that much that you don't have to, worry about it. If you have those type of small herbivores or deer or something like that jump the fence, then you build your fence appropriately to keep those animals out. Now, the other way of doing it is a caged approach. So you make a small square cage that's about twice the size of what you're going to clip. And it has a top on it. So it's like a rectangular box. And then that cage is put down on the ground. It needs to be tall enough that the plants don't go through it and they can be nipped off. And then you just stake it. And we used to use something that we call bull panels here. It's welded wire that's pretty. So if it gets stepped on, it doesn't get crushed. Right. And then we just take rebar, heat it up a little bit, put it in a vise and make a hook out of it and drive it in two opposite corners. And then that gives you your inside and outside comparison. And it's a lot easier and cheaper than maintaining a big exclosure. And then you just replicate that, let's say maybe 5 times, gives you a sample number that's reasonable. Because then you have n-1, so you have 4 degrees of freedom. And then what we used to do is when you got done clipping that, then you just take the cage and you throw it someplace else and restake it. And you can track with some degree, you get an estimate then of what grew back. If it's currently being grazed, then you get an estimate of what's, you can add those pieces up through the year if you want to keep coming back. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes, depending upon your goal and how much money you have, you only do it at the end of the year. And that's the simplest way. You just do it at the very end of what you say your grazing season is, the growing season. And then you do your clipping outside and inside. You compare the two and you say, well, we took whatever the percent is, we took it.
Yeah. Yeah, that might be a good idea here because we have no fences and right. A lot of areas that, the standing biomass winds up being nearly zero when we go to sample, but we know that there's a lot of production happening in those places. So, right now, standing biomass and production almost have no real relationship in a lot of the places where the grass is, clipped down to an inch or two. So, yeah, I think putting a cage and maybe doing a couple clippings throughout the year would make a lot of sense just to see how it would grow if animals weren't there. A curveball, though, that we have is that we have locusts. So the locusts come through and they eat the grass too, and you can't really, the cage is not going to stop them. So we have to somehow figure out how much they're going to eat.
We have here in the States where I live, we call it Mormon crickets. Mm-hmm. But they're locusts. They're a cold desert locust. But they're not every year. I mean, you'll get a few of them, But the big, massive herds, or whatever you call them, swarms, I guess, uh, they're somewhat random on it takes weather and some other activities to trigger them. Yeah, they'll strip everything. And
Yeah.
they'll eat the shrubs, the trees, when they're bad, they're bad. And then, at least here in Nevada, the state and the federal government then enter into an emergency spraying program and, go out there and try and kill them. So yeah,
Yeah,
you
they do the
can
same
buy
thing here basically,
fencing
but
material
it
that's
happens a lot.
small enough, like if locusts are an annual event that you need to deal with, then you could have your bull panel, which has a hole about 4 inches by 4 inch in it, more or less. And you could cover that with metal window screening, and that'll keep the
Yeah.
locusts out.
Yeah.
But some of the problems we run into in the literature is the micro weather inside the cage, especially if you put a fine mesh over it, is different than outside, because you're creating a shading environment, and you're also then potentially altering the rainfall rate or the snow rate that would reach the ground, because you have this tight mesh, and it may be better than having everything eaten by the locusts, but it is not a perfect representation of what would have been there if nothing had been. So it's just, like you said, a curveball that we all have to live with.
Yeah. Yeah, these are the questions that keep me up at night when I'm looking at the DSS data and trying to say, whether or not we can rely on that remote sensing estimate as something that we can really recommend for farmers that makes sense to them. And well, it looks like we might have everybody here. So I mean, we've been just discussing with Mark some of the questions that went into the research behind the protocol that we have now with using remote sensing in combination with the ground sampling stuff. And I think the thing that I learned from this whole project was that there are a lot of adjustment factors that you need to add in even after you have a really good estimate for how much forage production there is. And the Excel spreadsheet that Mark was using back in seminar 4 in 2021, that was it's basically a starting point for farmers to start to make their own decisions about how many hectares that they're going to use for their cattle, because we can't really be that prescriptive with our system. So farmers basically have to make some decisions on their own. How conservative do they want to be with their drought reserve factor for starters? And they sometimes, if farmers don't measure how many cattle they have very accurately, and especially how many kilograms of supplemental feed that they have and what type of feed, is it how efficient is that feed? Is it the right type for the animal? So it's not apples to apples, basically. All of that has to be taken into consideration. When we went out there this year, so we went in mid-June. We sort of got pressured a bit by the ministry to get the project done more quickly. They wanted us to go out initially in April, like pre-emergence. So there wasn't even any grass on the ground. It was just snow. So we said no. And eventually we bargained to be able to go out in June. So we did sampling. One of the farms was Janaberke, so we went out there a second time. I think it was also in 2021. So it was 2019, 2021, and then again in 22, or this year. So we we saw that farm again. They looked really good. All of the sites were the first state, so the middle state, or one of the middle states, and they had the pens out on the field. So they were taking a small number of cattle, and basically they had that supplemental water there for them and a place for them to come back to during the night. And it looked like they might not be herding them very far. So I don't know if that was a problem with Shawneeberry Cay farm specifically. But at least this year when we went there, it looked like they had put some of those solutions in place that we had recommended to reduce the herding distance in the 2019 report, 2021 report, I guess. And the other two farms, they also were pretty much all in state one. There was only one site that we found that was significantly degraded out of the 9 sites that we went to. So that one site, it was Artemisia, I think it was state 3. So yeah, out of 3 locations on that farm, one looked like it was not doing so well. And so yeah, our recommendations were a little bit less than 2021 numbers. So we came up with around 5 to 8 hectares per AUE on average, and with a 40% drought reserve coefficient, that comes to about 8 to 10 hectares per AUE that we would recommend for those locations. And basically, we saw a declining productivity between 2021 and 2022. This is based on the 2021 data, since it uses, MODIS uses 2021 average to predict the productivity that we're going off of there. So that's not really a surprise. I think we might see an increase in expected production in 2022, but there's a large amount of variability going on. So 40% drought reserve coefficient makes a lot of sense for us. And they told us some numbers that they use around, I heard 5 hectares per AUE as like a standard load factor. And then they were saying that at the maximum they use 2 hectares per AUE in very good conditions. So our numbers are basically a bit less than what the sort of average or standard number is. So it's telling them that they should either increase their pasture land or decrease the stocking rate that they have by a little bit. And with the DSS, we basically set it up so that anyone can use it. So I can perhaps show you guys what it looks like now. So I can go into the web app here. So it's pretty similar to the old system. And oh, it's going to take a while to load apparently. So you can select an oblast. We have some of the GPS coordinates of the sites that we were surveying. They're overlaid on the map there. I think this was the minimum, maximum was there before. But but now we have a picker as well. So you can go in and click somewhere. And this is on the app view. So you don't have to be in the Google Earth Engine code editor in order to do that. So any user can basically zoom in on their site and click on, like this is Jean Berquet site 1. So they can see it's 6.4 hectares per AUE in 2021 as the base number. And essentially what we did was we just went to a few of these sites and did clippings. And then we also did a plant census and a survey of the ranch itself, just to get a feel for the operations, take pictures, gather all of that data. And the recommendation in terms of hectares per AUE was we gave them the individual coordinate numbers. So we gave them all of these different numbers so they could see the variability, and then also the average across their site, and then what those numbers would look like with that 40% drought coefficient. So basically 40% higher in this case, number of hectares per AUE. And we didn't really take into account too much the distance to water. It's really variable. In this area, the animals are drinking snow melt water for about half the year. There's a lot of little pools and areas around that they get the water from there. And then the rest of the year, we don't even know if they have, in theory, they have supplemental water being brought in by truck. So basically, if they don't have water available during those periods, then they're expected to add some additional correction there, but we don't really know what it is. And this, can you guys see this ranch information here? So this is the survey app that we put together. So it's also sort of commercially designed so that it can work by a regular kind of inspector person, and it's deployed on app sheets. So it's a Google software, very easy to connect into Google Data Studio, Google Sheets, Google Earth Engine, and gather all of the data into one place and then report on it. And I think the coolest thing about this is that you can have, all of the samples with sample IDs. The laboratory person can be accessing the soil laboratory data, and then the field people can basically be putting in the plant samples or vegetation surveys at the same time, and everybody can kind of work on the same data set in the same app. And like we were mentioning a little bit earlier, it's in 3 languages. So if we send it over to Kazakh, I can't promise I'll be able to navigate through, but yeah, when we have it in Kazakh, everything actually works in Kazakh. Something interesting that we put together here was a, gosh, now I'm not able to find it there, question database. So inside of the app, we have a question database that we can basically turn questions on or off or adjust the wording. And you can see what survey the question is in. And so this was sort of a necessity. We had to do this in order to outsource the translation to a number of different people. I'm going to have to change that back to English so that I can see what I'm doing there. But I'm really proud of the team that worked on this. They really helped a lot with let's see, basically everything. There's a ton of questions in there that we sort of had to optimize to make everything machine readable. And then we have also this plant database with pictures and descriptions and climate zones and preferences for each type of animal. So we are starting to develop this ability to determine what the average preference is, like available forage per animal or per species, versus just showing available forage just for a cow. Since some of these plants are edible or preferred more by certain species than others. So yeah, everything actually worked pretty well in the field. There were some issues with the offline editing, but I think generally it all worked. It would work offline, and then when you come back onto LTE, generally everything would synchronize in the back end. If you weren't clicking it too many times, it would actually synchronize. So it caches the data. When you leave LTE, it caches the data on your device, and then as you enter it in, you hopefully you're not creating like a brand new ranch. You're working on an existing ranch, so you would have to have like the locations preset before you go out during the day. But as long as you have like location 1, 2, 3, and 4, one person could be recording data on location 1 on their phone, and then another person on location 2 on their phone, another person on location 3. And that was great because we were doing a lot of separated work where some people were at the farm, some people were doing these water surveys and going around trying to find all the different water features. And yeah, any questions about the survey app and how it works?
No, you've done a lot of work, Stuart. It looks very good.
Yeah, if I may, hi colleagues, sorry, I have my hand raised here. We were late, we had some difficulties connecting, so great to see you. Thank you, Stuart, for inviting us. Mark, very, very nice to see you. Sorry, I'm off camera, I'm down with COVID here, so Mark, beware.
Oh.
Europe is, again, we are yet another year in this pandemic. And Andrei, my colleague, is connected here. I see Gulnaz, also great to see you, colleagues. Girim, I know it's very late for you, so thanks for being online. And unfortunately, Yevgen and other guys from Ukraine are not able to connect because, as you know, the situation is very deteriorating lately there. So yeah, no, congratulations, fantastic, fantastic work. I guess my question would be more on the opera, how to make it, into operation, into practical use by farmers. What are the plans in terms of conveying this information to farmers, or perhaps to the associations and so on, I guess. Thanks.
Yeah, so we're currently working with the Girim, what is it called? Kazakh Whitehead, forget what the name of the organization is.
Hello, sorry, my switch off camera. I'm sick. Kazakh Agbas. Did you know this company?
Daurin, yeah, I know Daurin very well. He was in Rome a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
Daurin Matakbayev.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, so he is like auditing. He's like sort of giving us the gut check on our data, making sure that it sounds right. And then I think if he likes it, he may share it with his distribution of contacts. But they have a strong appetite for apps. If there's an app available to sort of help them, I think they'll use it. Most likely, they will want to use some variation of this Google Earth app. And we're considering ways to make this more friendly. So for example, just translating the user interface into Russian, for example. And I think we might add the ability to put some more statistics on there that might be useful, or just simplify it and make a mobile version of this. So it's got the picker, it's got the layers, and right now it doesn't really work that well on a mobile device, but we can definitely do that so that it works well on a mobile device, and you can click on your location and see what your number is. So it's really it's a how simple do we go, and then is that going to be useful for them sort of question. But we also have this little mini site, so all in English, but it could be translated into Russian. This is just an example of how the data backend works. So open that in a new tab so we can see a little better. So when you submit data into the survey app, it goes, within about 15 minutes over to this dashboard. So it starts crunching the data, and we can see, the wet mass per site, clipping. This is like representing all of the clipping data. So if we want to see perennial grass, we can see like what the different clipping weights were for perennial grass on that particular date, and scrub through all the dates of all of the samples. Oh, and this one's pretty cool as well. It's looking at the plant census data. So we could basically bring in any of the data on a dashboard like this, anything that would make sense to graph. But here we can sort of see, where the different types of plants are, and what's the difference between the available forage for different animals for each site. And again, all of the data basically is visible. It can be represented in this Google Data Studio because everything synchronizes back to a Google Sheet in real time. Here's the last sort of outcome from the project. In the technical specification, we had to use a drone to do something. I think that was just carried over from 2019's technical specification, which we used the drone in that case to get better spatial resolution of the remote sensing data, and sort of also have a confirmation of the remote sensing data for that day, because the drone had generally the same sensor spectrum that we had on remote sensing. But in this case, we actually used a regular RGB camera to apply a masker CNN, so machine learning, to count the cows. And you can see it's not perfect. But a very interesting thing that we found when we were doing this research was that MASCAR CNN is actually used a lot in the livestock ranching industry. Normally it's on fixed cameras above gateways to measure the gait of the animal, and also the shape of the animal, meaning its weight. So it's a good way to measure the weights of all of your animals if they're out on the range somewhere. And it actually does work. It's not very accurate, as you might expect. It's not super accurate, but it is a initial sort of proxy for weight. And if you do it once or twice, you can start to calibrate it and be able to tell by what percent is your weight, is your average weight going up or not, and identify issues there. Our initial reasoning for this whole experiment was the reports that we get from the farmers of a number of cattle that they have, different types of cattle. They just are not accurate. And I wanted to show how inaccurate they were. So this farm, Jean Berriquet, they said they had like 860 cattle, and we found over 1,200 when we did this survey. And this is, they have over 850 just here on their on one site, and they have like 12 different sites. So that was quite interesting to actually show them the number of cattle that they had on the site. And I mean, we didn't show them this. We didn't really communicate directly with the farmer like that, but we were able to talk to the ministry and Douren about this issue. That this may be a much better way of counting the animals and sort of maintaining a almost live number. Once you have the algorithm trained, which it's trained now on our system, it takes about half an hour. So it's like maybe 30, I don't know, around 3 to 5 seconds to draw each animal. So it depends on the number of animals that you have, but it's probably about the same amount of time as it would take a human to count the animal just from the picture. But it is nice that it's fully automatic. So I think that's about all I wanted to share today, but I have plenty of time for questions. And yeah, does anybody have anything?
Stuart, the other thing that we had no way of proving it, but my gut told me that when we did the survey, when Gulnaz and Mara and others did our last survey for us, it was amazing how efficient the Kazakhstan operations were, in that almost everyone was producing 100% calf crop, which is almost impossible. I mean, it's just the highest rated farm. Something's, if you're running 1,000 cows, one cow's not going to, have a miscarriage or whatever. No, these are all 100% producing. And so, like you said, with a grain of salt, you have to take some of the numbers we get back from those type of surveys. So you're auditing actual numbers will really make a difference on trying to figure out what your production is on that site in relationship to its grazing percentage. I mean, it's key to verify that. If we're going to go to remote sensing, you need to have an accurate number of animals and the type of animal, whether they're a yearling or a 6 months old calf or a 5-year-old bull.
Yeah, and horses and sheep and dogs. We also picked them up in our data. With the weight system turned on, they turned out as a really, really heavy cow. But yeah, they also you can basically automate it so that you can detect how many horses are there in that image. And I believe that it's possible to use that to detect how many calves, because they look significantly different on the image compared to the full-size animals. So it was really interesting. It was a small portion of the project, and we got a lot of questions from that. They were wondering exactly why we're doing that. What can we do with it? So that's that's one sort of negative part of it, is that we do have to fend off a lot of kind of magical realism sorts of questions, but there are some real capabilities that it has as well, which are potentially game changing in terms of the survey accuracy. And at the end of the day, they just want to know what they should do. What should they modify? How many animals they want to put on or take off. And they may not even know really how many they have. So they're looking to us for that. And that's probably that was a really big surprise for me, that they were actually asking us how many cows do we have, and expecting us to count them all. Like I thought they would know to some degree, but some of the surveys we got, they said like 1,000 cows. How many? Really, exactly 1,000.
Yeah, and it goes back to the survey too. We had asked, how do they track their animals? And so many of them said they're all tagged, with the RFI tagging on them. And so, and I didn't believe that statement either, but you couldn't prove it. So, it just goes to what you're saying is what, and I don't think they're trying to be dishonest on purpose. I suspect that they're giving the answer that they think the government wants. So, I mean, one of the reasons for tagging your cows is just to know how many you got. But the other thing is then it ties to all your vet records, and it ties to your animal performance. Is that cow calving every year, or you're running around a dry cow for 3 or 4 years who's eating, but you're getting no value from it from producing a calf crop? And, but if they don't know who's asking the question and how it's going to be used against them, you can understand why your questions and your answers don't always make sense to what you see in the field. So the only other thing, Stuart, I have is where are you going from here? And I appreciated looking up on and seeing where you guys have gone.
Well, we will maintain the data. And so we'll keep it up online for free for anybody to use, public, no sign-in required, probably for as long as our company is going, which the company is funded sort of privately, so it could go on indefinitely. But we're hoping to have more projects happening in the future, with CAS Now perhaps, or with ministry, or with private companies as well. So we're open to those more commercial things as well. It's easier, I think, in the commercial sector a little bit because they know a little bit more about what they want and what they're going to get out of the whole thing. Whereas with the government funded things, you have to tell the farmer what they want, and they're not really sure how to respond to that. So in one case, at least, the owner of the farm was on vacation and didn't want to come visit with us. It wasn't worth it for him. So, that's obviously we're not going to get very far if that's the case. So we need to get more onto the commercial side of this whole operation and make things really easy to use. So yeah, my philosophy is giving the data away for free, giving the app away for free. It's a marketing play for us to be able to upsell them on something more. And it's actually surprisingly hard to give something away for free. So the promotion that we need, we actually do need some help promoting, even though it's totally free. You still have to sort of get that in front of people for them to start to adopt it. So I have no idea how we're going to do that.
Well, I think they
I'm
will
not sure
soon
either.
turn up to you, considering the consecutive droughts that Kazakhstan, as other countries in the region, face. I mean, this now with the vulnerability of the entire, especially beef sector, we see how important understanding of all these metrics are for proper decision making. So it's just you have to wait, I think, for a couple of months, and then you'll see there will be people queuing to your office, because this is critical, and no subsidies or no sound, how to say, no what we call it, potential will not substitute practical tools that can help people feed their animals sustainably and feed people sustainably. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Stuart, and the whole your team for the incredible work. And I know, like, past 3 years, the Mark, Ina, and all of us were working hard in order to establish some kind of like a basement for this work. And it is good that it's taken off to the next level. And one of the options to where we are going from here is that recently I talked to the USDA team, Jason, and there is a new Mark, who is substituting you now since you retired? Newman?
A lady by the name of Beth Newingham is still in an acting capacity. They're trying to hire a replacement, but they haven't been successful.
Oh, well, I know why they haven't been successful, but because no one has so much knowledge as you do and experience. So they were contacting me on working like on the next level on this project. So that's why it would be good when we have the discussion, because discussion we might have in January with USDA team, leading with Jason, and to discuss on our options, how to work with USDA, probably Michigan State University, and Artec, Kaznaru, and all the team, and the ministry, of course, and like to put some ground on a new project, which will be funded maybe by ADB or EBRD. There are so many options. So yeah, that would be very good. I mean, to team up on the next level.
Well, like I said, I'm retired, but I'll answer questions and participate where I can. There's not much else going on in our life. I mean, we're doing other things, but I had a couple surgeries earlier this year for some hernia replacements and stuff like that. But we're all good now. And if you have questions, you have my email, just email me and I'll get back with you.
Sounds good, Mark. Yeah, I think we'll be looking for suggestions on how to continue, how to promote, and get the stocking rate calculator out there, so that people can start using it and understand its benefits. And they want more. I know from talking with Darren, people are really interested in the nitty-gritty details of all the way down to like micronutrients and their supplemental feeding and total mixed ration, how to put together a total mixed ration system on their farm. So they're sort of going all the way to the most high-tech stuff, which I've my time in Kazakhstan, that's what I've seen over and over. They kind of go right to the most high-tech sort of sexy solutions, right? Without doing the irrigation and the biosecurity and making sure you don't have rats and cats and I don't know, lack of temperature control on your milk systems, these other things that they sort of need to work on as well. So yeah, I think we have to go forward with a balance, basically, of new high-tech solutions packaged with old school, back to basic stuff, which they haven't covered 100% yet. Sort of give them what is this phrase, like sugar with their medicine or something like that. So yeah, that'll be the strategy, I think, into the next year.
Okay, well, sounds good. You all have a happy holiday season, and I wish the best for Jurgen. I know that's a very, very difficult situation over there in the country, Ina. So I'm glad to hear that he is safe and most of his family's out of harm's way. But like I said before, just contact me and I'll try and get back in touch with you. We have been doing a lot of camping, not this time of year because of the snow and everything. So we go up in the mountains and hide, and there's no cell phone connection, but I'll get back as soon as possible. And have a good new year and good luck on moving forward.
You too. Everybody have a great holiday, and we'll see you hopefully in the new year.
All right,
Thank you.
sounds good. Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Stuart, could you please share the recording so that we can
Yes.
get back and revise also. And here is the Christmas tree. So happy upcoming Christmas to everyone. Yeah, it was nice talking to you. Yeah, it was nice meeting you, Ina, again. Hopefully we'll meet you in the same project with FAO.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. And again, congratulations. Great accomplishment.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.